You are being lied to. So here I am today in the local cemetery of my town, back here in Canada. And with All Hallows approaching, I thought it'd be a good idea to discuss the paranormal. So there's a lot of YouTubers going on who are ghost hunters, talk about hauntings and stuff like that. And I think it's time, with a growing in popularity, that we discuss it from a traditionalist Catholic perspective. For starters, you are being lied to. Most of the ghost hunters you watch are giving you bumps in the night and things that are totally irrelevant and are not the real deal. The real deal does exist, but most of the stuff you see isn't it. So I'll give an example. So here we are today, as I said, in this local cemetery. It is daylight. What you hear? You might hear some music from the football field of the local university, but you're really not hearing any disembodied voices. This is because most of the stuff that you consider hauntings are just tricks of the mind. So I'll give an example of something that I experienced that was a trick of the mind. So in Nova Scotia, Canada, there's a famous haunted fortress called the Citadel. It's an amazing fortress. It goes back hundreds of years. Definitely worth a visit if you're ever in Halifax, Nova Scotia. But there's a story of a ghost of a woman dressed in white that haunts the corridors of the place at night. I have been there around 3 in the afternoon. Inside the tunnels of the fortress, it's very dark. And I looked in the distance, and I saw a woman in bright white robes glowing with light. I was just shocked. But I had already been listening to exorcists talk about things for years now, especially the older ones like Father Malachi Martin. Newer post-Vatican II exorcists are kind of getting to like Protestantism, so as a result they are less skeptical of claims of the supernatural. So I looked at this and decided, instead of running away or thinking I had seen a ghost, I would walk towards it. I walked further and further. Turned out what I had seen was a trick of my eyes. It was just a beam of light hitting the wall. And because my brain is trained to see danger just in case, it registered as a person just in case I need to defend myself. Same thing goes when it's late at night, you're hearing sounds and creaking. You might hear voices. Because you don't know what the creaking thing is, and your brain is trying to tell you better safe than sorry. This is how most exorcists approach this. The traditional rite of exorcism calls on exorcists to approach the situation from a position of incredulity. You are to be skeptical when someone claims that they're possessed or haunted, and even when you're doing the exorcism, you're not supposed to think anything is there and be as skeptical as possible, because you don't want to give the devil more power than is his due. This is a common feature on most ghost hunting trips. So if you look at most ghost hunting shows, take a look at it the next time. You will hear you will hear audio played back that is completely inaudible, and it sounds very much like creaking or static electricity. But they'll say it's, saying this sentence, and they'll write it underneath, and so your brain is tricked into hearing the sentence. Another thing that is you should be incredibly skeptical of is called the Estes method. Essentially, someone is blindfolded. They say they try to contact the dead and they say they see visions, that hear voices, etc. All this is easily faked. Not even saying that someone is lying, though I'm sure in many cases people are, but it can be a simple trick of the mind. If you are hunting for ghosts and are trying to actually find the real deal, that is not a good way to reliably determine if there are ghosts. Same thing goes with ghost boxes, which just pick up a static electricity. And we try to string together sentences when there are in fact none, just random words. So this goes for most hauntings. The thing is though, that not all hauntings are fake. I think about 2%, which is an increase from the 1960s, of cases of possession and haunting are considered to be real and are subject to exorcism. Exorcists do have to perform exorcisms. They don't just debunk it. And that leads to the next point of the ethics of ghost hunting. This is, even from a non-Catholic perspective, a highly unethical thing to do, to hunt for ghosts. So let's leave aside the Catholic position for a moment. We'll come back to it in 1 second, but let's look at it from a secular spiritualist point of view. Let's say this is the soul of a departed person most of the time. Why are you going to a place where someone's supposedly trapped and they're haunting the place, and essentially shoving a camera in their face for people's entertainment? Imagine if I went to your house and did that. That would be incredibly unethical. That would be incredibly immoral and wrong. What is more, especially if it is demonic, it is incredibly dangerous. Remember, we have no ways to verify any spirits that are real, if they are telling the truth, if they are who they claim to be. Even if they say, oh, this person did this or that, it doesn't mean it's them. It could be a demon, and likely is a demon committing identity theft. I would point out in the book of Deuteronomy, it explicitly forbids trying to contact the dead. We can venerate the saints who are confirmed in heaven by either pre-congregation or decree of the Holy See, and that's what it takes. You generally should not be venerating someone who is random person who has died. In fact, this is a common complaint in modern Catholic funerals, that they de facto canonize the person. This is not a Catholic practice. People who are dead are to be subject of our prayers, and we don't ask them to pray for us. In cases when saints have spoken to souls in purgatory, they do not have access to secret knowledge, which is what as it was famously known from the case of Father John Bosco, who was allowed to speak to a soul in purgatory. He asked them, am I in a state of grace? The soul in purgatory said, I don't know. Am I going to be saved? I don't know. Is that person going to be saved? I don't know. Souls in purgatory are humans. They are in need of prayers, but they do not have secret knowledge, which is contrary to the beliefs of the ancients. So if you look at the Odyssey, you see in the case of Odysseus, who offers sacrifices dead, pours libation, sacrifices black rams. In the middle of the day, he has visions of all these souls coming up from the underworld, including the ghost of Tiresias, who gives him advice because he has all the secret knowledge from the other ghosts and from the underworld. That is not what we are Catholics to do. We are not to fool around as Catholics with Ouija boards. This is a mortal sin. If you've done this, you need to go to confession. Never do it again. This is a mortal sin. Also the sin that can open the door to possession. Again, which is why ghost hunting can be so dangerous. Is author even fake, or it is incredibly dangerous? I've heard stories on internet forums of people who want to get their 8-year-old kids ghost boxes to go ghost hunting. You're giving your kids essentially a tool, supposedly, to speak with who knows who on the... Imagine if you told your kids, oh, just go to this random forum of the internet with these dangerous people and tell them where you live and invite them home. That is essentially what you're doing. It is incredibly dangerous. However you look at it, even from a non-Catholic perspective, if you think it is real, it is dangerous. Young children should not be doing this. Also, in most cultures, this is not just Catholicism that thinks that ghost hunting is immoral. For example, I have friends who are Germanic Neo-Pagan, for example. They consider it, they're not as strict about it as Catholics, but they do believe it is immoral. They would allow it only under the gravest situations, as in the city will be destroyed if we don't get the secret knowledge. And so we have to do it. It has to be things like that. Most religious traditions around the world, you leave the dead dead. This includes Catholicism. You are not to do necromancy. You're not to do, whether it be the Estats method, whether it be Ouija boards, whether it be ghost boxes, it is all a mortal sin. Also, by doing so, by committing a mortal sin, you're putting yourself open to spiritual danger. So, this leads to the next problem. This ghost hunting can lead to demonic possession. Dabbling in occult practices, including necromancy, contacting dead and Ouija boards, and being a paranormal hunter, can open you to being haunted, possessed, or even demonically possessed when it is real, which can and does happen. And I have been in situations where I do believe I have seen the real deal. It is happily it happened only once, and never happened again. But it can happen. You need to be very cautious with this sort of thing. So, and it is not something that is meant for entertainment. So, what should we do as Catholics in this regard? For starters, Under no circumstances, if you think you're in a haunted house, try to directly contact a spirit. If you think you've heard something, it's one of three things: natural phenomena that's explained by something else, which is overwhelming majority of cases. It might be, very rarely, a soul in purgatory, in which case it just wants prayers for repose. Or more commonly, it is a demon that is trying to haunt you, and in which case it wants your soul. It wants you in hell with it forever. It's one of those three. Guaranteed, one of those three. If, in this case, you should contact a traditional Catholic priest or your local diocese. Local dioceses are unfortunately overly skeptical and do not take these claims seriously, but you should first try to dismiss it, but you should not contact random paranormal investigators. Do not contact psychics, etc., etc. And my goodness, do not contact a local ghost hunter show, whatever you darn well do. They will fool around, not give you good information. They will often do it for entertainment purposes, and if there is something there, they'll just provoke it, make it more powerful, make situations worse. Contact a local priest, or ideally traditional Catholic priest if you can. You should get the house blessed. It only should, if things persist, and only under the guidance of a traditional Catholic exorcist should you bring in experts to investigate the scenario. They will probably look at the history of the place, the mortal sins you may have committed, etc., and they will have recording devices, probably hopefully not directly speaking to these spirits. Again, this should all be done under the strict guidance of a traditional Catholic priest. Anyone who is not following their advice should be booted off the team completely. You would also be subject to a psychological analysis to make sure you're mentally well. This is, again, part of the process, because if there's a demon, you want it out. But if it's actually you're just you're stressed out, you're seeing things, maybe you need some medicine. That's also, so if that's the solution, then that's the solution. You need to find out if that's the case as well. Under no circumstances should you attempt an exorcism yourself. Especially if there's a lot of full-bodied apparitions, if things have really been starting to be debunked, especially if people have been physically attacked, which can happen. Call an exorcist. Get your family and your loved ones out of the way as soon as possible. Thankfully, this will be a minority of cases. Do not speak with it. Do not interact with it in any way. By doing so, you form a relationship with the evil spirit, and it's something that should be completely and utterly avoided. You should pray. Do not do deliverance prayers. I spoke with SSPX priests about this, that these are very much a Protestant devotion, and as such heretical, and can lead to superstition both. Even when things are not there, it can lead things in. Or it can lead you to superstitious and heretical beliefs, which actually is technically worse than being demonically possessed, because then you're under the demon's jurisdiction anyway, in which case it has no need to haunt you. It's already got you. If you have mortal sins in your life, more than anything else, that is something you need to get rid of, because that's what's putting you under the demon's jurisdiction. Whether it be occult practices, whether it be fornication or similar immorality, whether it be unforgiveness. I've heard people who work with exorcists give interviews and say one of the things they do to help people who are possessed sometimes is that they will give them counseling, because the reason they got possessed because their unforgiveness of past trauma was a door. And they had to close the door, but to do so they needed counseling. Learn to forgive. Put your life in order with God. Put your life in order with Jesus Christ. Get the traditional Catholic sacraments. Put your life in order. Forgive people. Stop if you cruel or unkind. Stop that. If you're bitter, mean-spirited, if you're committing mortal sin, fornication, full of pride, give it, and doing non-Catholic practices, give it all up. Because those are the doors that let the demon in more than anything else. And that is more than anything else. The haunting is like a flooding of a house, or your soul, or your body. First thing you do when something is flooding is you turn off the tap. So repentance and making good through a confession, giving up the sin, is the most important thing. And then under the guidance of traditional Catholic priests or exorcists, then deal with it. And it can take like years sometimes to get rid of a real demon. But first of all, you need to break that relationship, which means more than anything else, giving up the mortal sin, making thorough confession, giving your life to Jesus Christ and His traditional Catholic faith. Anyway, God bless. Have a great day. Check an SSPX church in your life. Please, if you have this situation, contact a traditional Catholic priest. And please, please, please do not fool around with Ouija boards, ghost boxes, the occult, or go ghost hunting or anything like that. These open dangerous doors and are often fraudulent. God bless. Have a great day.